The village slept beneath a quilt of mist, its cobblestone streets hushed and glimmering under the pale moonlight. In the small cottage at the edge of the woods, a girl moved quietly, her steps deliberate and careful, as if the slightest sound could betray her. She wrapped her slender arms around herself, feeling the familiar hum beneath her skin, the wolf she had kept hidden for years. No one knew the truth of her strength. No one must. She had learned early that power invited fear, and fear invited enemies. And so she had become a shadow, a delicate girl with trembling hands and downcast eyes, hiding the muscles, the speed, the ferocity that pulsed just beneath the surface. Yet tonight, the world had a way of testing what was kept secret. The shrill cry came first, a scream slicing through the silence like a blade. Her heart jumped, her pulse spiking in synchrony with her wolf's rising awareness. Instinct drew her toward the sound, legs moving before she fully processed the danger. A figure stumbled into the clearing, a villager, no more than a boy, cornered by a brute wielding a cruel, jagged knife. The girl's fingers curled, her wolf roared inside her mind, whispering of teeth, claws, speed. She could stay hidden, she could remain powerless, but something in her chest refused. With a breath that shivered across the night air, she stepped forward. Muscles coiled, and before the assailant could react, she moved like a shadow striking from nowhere. Her hands, small yet unyielding, sent him sprawling to the ground. The knife clattered, forgotten, as the boy's eyes widened, disbelief painting his face. You're strong, he stammered, voice trembling. She forced a fragile smile, shaking her head. I'm just lucky, she whispered, voice almost swallowed by the rustle of the trees. But luck had nothing to do with it. She felt the surge of power that always scared her, the raw strength that had kept her alive in secret. Tonight it had revealed itself, and with it a dangerous truth lingered. Someone who could not be ignored had awakened inside her. A rustle in the shadows made her heart stutter, eyes narrowed, every sense screaming alert. The forest had grown alive with whispers, warning, and anticipation. She turned, ready to disappear into the mist once more. But a flicker of movement in the darkness suggested that the world outside her small village had already noticed her. Her wolf growled softly, a low rumble of warning and promise. She swallowed the surge of fear, knowing this night was only the beginning. The girl who feared her own strength had been forced to confront it. And for the first time in years, she wondered, what would happen if no one could ever make her hide again? The morning sun had not yet broken through the storm. Heavy clouds when the Alpha King entered the council hall, his presence commanding even before he spoke. The room was alive with murmurs, the scent of fear and resentment thick in the air. His pack, once loyal and unwavering, now seemed hesitant, their eyes flicking toward one another as if testing the waters of rebellion. He had always carried himself like stone and fire, a predator whose word was law, but today his authority was under scrutiny. A visiting elder from a rival pack stepped forward, his gaze sharp, words cutting. Your decisions have endangered your people, Alpha, the elder said, voice steady but dripping with challenge. Power is wasted on those who cannot wield it wisely. The king's jaw tightened. His dark eyes, usually so composed, flickered with a rare vulnerability. Around the council table, whispers erupted like sparks in dry grass. Loyalty wavered. Questions that had been buried in polite silence now clawed their way to the surface. From the shadows at the edge of the hall, she watched. The girl who had confronted her own strength only the night before felt a curious twist of fear and fascination. Her pulse matched his, even from afar, as though the air itself hummed with the weight of his presence. He was Alpha in every sense, strong, dominant, flawless, but flawed in the way that made him human, exposed. Your crown is heavy, Alpha. Another voice dared, perhaps too heavy for the man who wears it. A low growl resonated from deep within the king's chest. His hands clenched into fists, the knuckles white, yet he said nothing, his silence more powerful than any roar. Pride battled with the sting of humiliation, a war fought on a battlefield no one could see. She felt it, the pull. Her wolf stirred, sensing the tension, the danger surrounding him. She wanted, needed, to leap forward, to strike down the mockery, to protect him. Yet she held back. She could not reveal herself, not here, not now. To act would risk everything she had spent years guarding. Her gaze lingered on him, on the rigid line of his shoulders and the flicker of hurt in his dark eyes. Even unseen, her presence felt tied to him somehow, a silent echo of strength she dared not unleash. She knew that if anyone else tried to humiliate him, the consequences would be deadly, but she could not intervene. Not yet. The council's scrutiny finally ended, the room settling into an uneasy silence, and the Alpha King's gaze swept the hall. It was a sweep that could cut a man in half, measuring loyalty, measuring fear, measuring who could be trusted, and who could not. Her breath caught. He did not see her, and yet she felt the weight of his awareness, as if some instinctive thread tethered them across distance. Her wolf growled low in her chest, restless, impatient, and fiercely protective. She wanted to act, to reveal herself, to throw herself into the fray, but she could only watch. As the council adjourned, murmurs trailing like smoke through the hall, she stepped back into the shadows. Her chest ached with conflicting emotions, fear, desire, and the strange, intoxicating pull toward the man who had just been humiliated yet refused to break. Tonight, she thought, when darkness returned, the world would demand she face her truth again. And this time it would not be a simple scream in the night that called her forth. Night had fallen again, and the forest outside the village seemed alive with whispered secrets. The girl moved silently among the trees, her bare feet brushing the damp earth, each step deliberate, cautious. The memory of the Alpha's humiliation lingered in her mind, twisting with a strange, unfamiliar urge. Something inside her, the wolf she had long restrained, stirred. It began as a twitch in her fingertips, then a sudden rush of energy in her legs. Her breath hitched. She tried to shake it off, forcing herself to appear fragile, human, harmless, but the sensation was relentless. Her claws, though invisible to human eyes, ached to extend, her senses sharpening beyond what she dared admit. Every sound of the forest seemed to shout at her, and every shadow held both threat and temptation. The wolf within whispered warnings, urging her to flee, to hide, to remain the powerless girl everyone thought she was. But another part, an older, darker part, pulled her toward the Alpha. Something about his struggle, his pain, resonated deep within her, a connection she could not name. She felt drawn to him as if their destinies were already entwined, though she had never spoken a word to him. A sudden snap of a twig made her freeze. Her ears, more sensitive than any human's, picked up the softest movement. A fox darting across the underbrush. Relief flooded her for a moment, but then her instincts flared again. Danger, there was something else, something human but heavy with intent, lurking nearby. She crouched low, every muscle taut, every sense screaming alert. Her mind raced. If she revealed even a hint of her true strength now, she would be exposed. Pack politics were unforgiving, and the Alpha, humiliated or not, could not afford to have someone of her power seen as a potential rival. Yet, the pull toward him was irresistible. Her wolf's need to protect, to claim, to connect, threatened to betray her secret at every step. She clenched her fists, letting the primal tension simmer beneath her skin. Her shadow flickered across the trees, blending with the moonlight, and for a brief, breathtaking instant, she felt invincible. Then reality returned heavy and sharp. Her heart thudded, not just with adrenaline, but with longing. The Alpha was out there, the world demanding courage she was still afraid to show, and yet, something inside her whispered that hiding forever would no longer be enough. A soft rustle drew her attention to the clearing ahead. Moonlight glinted off a figure moving with measured grace. He had not noticed her yet, but she sensed him as clearly as the wolf sensed the wind. His presence was magnetic, commanding even from a distance. She wanted to call out, to run to him, to warn him of dangers she could feel creeping closer, but she stayed rooted, torn between instinct and caution. As she watched, a shiver ran down her spine. The shadows themselves seemed to lean toward her, pressing against her resolve. Her wolf growled low, frustrated, impatient, hungry for release. She realized, with a mix of fear and exhilaration, that the hidden power she had feared for so long was no longer entirely under her control, and perhaps, she thought, the Alpha's danger, and the strange, undeniable pull between them, was the key that would unlock it. The forest exhaled around her, alive with anticipation. She did not yet understand the cost of this awakening, nor the storms it would bring, but she knew one thing with terrifying certainty: her secret would not stay hidden forever. The clearing was quiet, almost impossibly so. Moonlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting silver patterns on the forest floor. She moved carefully, every step measured, heart thrumming like a war drum. Her wolf stirred restlessly beneath her skin, sensing him before she even glimpsed him. Sensing the alpha, the man whose presence had begun to echo through her every thought. He was standing near the riverbank, shoulders squared, gaze distant. Even from afar, his aura radiated dominance and restrained power, every movement precise and controlled. He didn't belong to the world of ordinary men. She had known that from the moment she first glimpsed him, but tonight, there was something different, something that drew her closer despite every instinct screaming caution. Her breath caught as their eyes met. Though he was not looking directly at her, there was a flicker, a pulse of awareness that made her chest tighten. The wolf inside her growled softly, a low vibration of both warning and hunger. She froze, feeling the magnetic pull of his gaze, though he may not have even realized it. A sudden rustle behind her made her whirl, teeth bared instinctively, claws threatening the forest floor. Nothing, only the shadows shifting with the wind. She exhaled slowly, heart hammering. The danger was everywhere, yet somehow it had focused all her attention on him, the Alpha King, the man she could not approach, could not reveal herself to, yet could not resist. He stepped forward, his voice low, almost casual, but cutting through the quiet night with undeniable authority. "You're here." The words were simple, but they struck her like a blow. He knew, or at least he sensed her presence, though he could not possibly know the truth of her strength, of the wolf that hid beneath her fragile form. She kept her composure, forcing a delicate bow of the head, the pretense of weakness that had become second nature. I wasn't," she began, faltering under his gaze. "You're different," he said, almost a whisper, but heavy with meaning. "There's something unusual about you." Her pulse skipped. Unusual, the word carried curiosity, danger, and a challenge all at once. She wanted to protest, to insist she was nothing, just a fragile girl. But the wolf inside her bristled, unwilling to stay silent. Something primal surged, a thread of connection she could not explain, binding her to him across the space between them. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of the forest, and of him. It was intoxicating, commanding, as if the world itself acknowledged his presence and made her feel smaller and larger all at once. She wanted to run, to flee, to hide forever, but instead, she stood frozen, mesmerized, caught between instinct and desire. He took a step closer, cautious yet deliberate, eyes never leaving hers. "Be careful," he murmured, voice carrying both warning and intrigue. "Not everyone notices what you can do." Her lips parted, a whisper of a reply caught in her throat. She didn't need to speak. The tension between them said more than words ever could. Every heartbeat, every breath, every shiver of anticipation was a conversation in itself, silent, dangerous, and utterly forbidden. And in that instant, beneath the moonlight and the watchful trees, a bond, tenuous, unspoken, and irresistible, began to form. Her wolf growled, low and possessive. She shivered, uncertain if it was fear, desire, or something deeper she had never allowed herself to name. Something had changed, the Alpha had noticed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The night hung heavy with mist, cloaking the forest in silver, gray shadows. She had returned to the edge of the village, careful to avoid prying eyes, but she could feel him, the Alpha, nearby. His presence was a weight in the air, pressing against her senses, commanding attention even when he said nothing. "You shouldn't wander alone." His voice broke through the stillness, low and measured, carrying authority and a subtle edge of concern. She froze, heart pounding. He had appeared as silently as a shadow, yet she hadn't sensed him until his words brushed against her. I can take care of myself," she replied, forcing her voice steady, fragile even. the mask she had worn for years firmly in place. His dark eyes studied her, sharp and calculating, but there was something else there now, something like recognition, like a flicker of understanding that unsettled her more than fear ever had. "I know what you're capable of," he said softly. "You can't hide it forever, and some dangers you shouldn't face alone." Her chest tightened. How could he possibly know? She had never told anyone, never even dared to let a shadow glimpse the wolf beneath her skin. Yet here he was, aware enough to offer protection, hinting at truths she wasn't ready to reveal. Pride warred with instinct. Could she trust him, or would his curiosity become a threat? "I don't need protection," she whispered, twisting her fingers in the folds of her cloak. I survived just fine on my own." He stepped closer, closing the distance just enough that the forest air seemed to burn between them. "I don't doubt your strength," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "But strength alone isn't enough. There are forces coming, forces that even you, powerful as you are, cannot face without someone who knows what's at stake." The wolf inside her stirred restlessly, sensing the truth in his words, the danger hidden just beyond sight. Her pulse raced, and she realized with a jolt how much she needed him, not just his protection, but his recognition, his acknowledgement that she wasn't invisible, that her power mattered. "I can't," she began, faltering under the weight of unspoken truths. Her wolf twitched beneath her skin, itching for release, craving connection, and warning her against revealing too much. "I can't trust anyone." He tilted his head, studying her, his expression unreadable. Then, with deliberate precision, he extended a hand, half invitation, half challenge. "Trust isn't given, it's earned, but tonight I'm offering you a choice. Walk away and face what's coming alone, or let me protect you, and maybe in time we both discover what that means." Her throat went dry. His hand was so close, so impossible to reach without breaking the careful boundaries she had built for herself. Every instinct screamed to run, yet another voice, the wolf's voice, soft and commanding, urged her to step forward, to allow herself to be seen, to risk. She swallowed hard, forcing her pride into a fragile smile. I need time," she said, though the words felt hollow even as they left her lips. He didn't press. He simply nodded, eyes lingering on her with an intensity that made her shiver, and then, almost imperceptibly, he stepped back into the shadows, but the weight of his presence remained, pressing against her, refusing to be ignored. The night seemed suddenly smaller, charged with possibilities and threats alike. She felt the pull of him in ways that terrified her, magnetic, dangerous, irresistible. And she knew, even as the mist curled around her ankles, that her secret life, her hidden strength, and her carefully constructed world were about to collide with a power she could no longer ignore. Her wolf growled softly, restless and impatient. Protection had been offered, but the price, and the danger, was still unknown, and she knew she would never be the same. The night carried a chill that crept into her bones, whispering warnings she couldn't ignore. She had stayed close to the edges of the forest, moving like a shadow, senses stretched taut, every leaf, every rustle alerting her to danger. Her secret, the wolf she had hidden for so long, was no longer just her own burden. It had become a liability, one that could cost her everything, including the alpha who had begun to occupy her thoughts more than she dared admit. A soft movement in the darkness brought her to a halt. Her ears twitched and the wolf inside her bristled with warning. Someone, or something, was following her, not a villager, not an ordinary hunter. The air carried the scent of a rival pack, the kind that would see her strength as a weapon to wield or a threat to expose. Her mind raced. If they discovered her wolf form, if the alpha saw it before she chose to reveal herself, it would shatter the careful balance she had maintained for years. She would be hunted, used. And the man who had offered her protection would be drawn into danger he did not yet understand. A figure emerged from the shadows, a male, strong, predatory, and unfamiliar. His eyes glimmered with cunning, and there was an almost cruel amusement in his smirk. "I've heard whispers," he said, voice smooth, deliberate, "of a girl who hides more than she should. A wolf who dares to mask her claws." Her heart hammered. He knew. How could he know? Panic clawed at her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm, to appear fragile, harmless, the way she had trained herself for years. "You're mistaken," she said softly, trying to keep her voice steady. "There's nothing unusual about me." His laughter was low, dangerous. "Oh, I think you'll find that everyone has a secret. Yours could cost lives." The wolf inside her growled, a low, vibrating warning. She could feel it now, not just in instinct, but in the way her muscles tensed, her senses sharpening beyond human limits. She wanted to strike, to tear the man apart before he could move another step closer, but she restrained herself. If she revealed herself now, it would draw the alpha into danger, and she was not ready to risk him yet. Yet the pull toward him, the predator, the danger, the thrill, was undeniable. He knew her secret, or at least suspected it, and the knowledge alone sent a jolt of fear and excitement coursing through her. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, but another voice, the wolf's voice, urged her to stand, to face what had come. She took a careful step backward, eyes locked on him. "You'll leave before dawn," she warned, voice trembling with both fear and authority, "or I'll make sure you regret crossing me." He tilted his head, amusement still flickering in his eyes. "Oh, I wouldn't be so sure of that, little wolf. Secrets like yours, they're dangerous, and dangerous things have a way of being revealed." The forest seemed to hold its breath. The tension was electric, every shadow a potential threat. Her wolf growled again, low and possessive, demanding control she hadn't yet surrendered. She knew the rival pack would not retreat quietly. The threat was real, immediate, and it had already put the alpha in the crosshairs, whether he knew it or not. Her chest ached with the weight of her secret, the danger pressing closer, and the sudden, terrifying possibility that she could lose everything. Her freedom, her hidden power, and perhaps even the man who had begun to claim a part of her heart. And she realized with a shiver she could not hide that hiding forever was no longer an option. The wolf inside her surged, ready to strike, ready to reveal the truth she had so long concealed. But tonight, she would wait. The air was thick with the scent of rain, soaked earth and distant pine, a night alive with whispers of things unseen. She lingered at the edge of the clearing, where moonlight spilled in silver ribbons through the canopy. Her heart still thudded from the threat of the rival pack, but now another tension coiled inside her, a pull she couldn't ignore him. The alpha emerged from the shadows, silent as a predator, yet each step radiating the power she had felt before. His dark eyes scanned the forest, cautious, alert, but when they landed on her, something softened. A recognition, a question, a spark that made her stomach twist with longing. "You shouldn't be here alone," he murmured, voice low, but not as commanding as it had been in the council hall. Tonight it was edged with something, personal, almost intimate. I'm careful," she said, forcing a lightness she did not feel. Her wolf bristled, sensing the tension rolling off him in waves, the same pull she could not name but could feel in every nerve. He stepped closer, close enough that the heat of his presence brushed against her, close enough that every instinct in her body screamed both warning and desire. She wanted to step back. She had always been cautious, but something deep inside resisted. Their hands brushed accidentally, lightly, over the edge of a branch she had been steadying herself on. The shock of contact sent a shiver up her spine. She jerked back, heart racing, but the alpha's gaze held hers, unwavering. He didn't recoil, he didn't retreat. Instead, he tilted his head, a flicker of curiosity and challenge in his dark eyes. "You feel it too," he said softly, more a statement than a question. She swallowed, uncertain whether he meant the pull between them or the wolf stirring beneath her skin. I don't know what you mean," she whispered, though the truth hovered just beneath her words. A subtle wind rustled the leaves above, as if the forest itself leaned closer, attentive to their unspoken conversation. Every glance, every slight brush of fingers carried weight, dangerous, forbidden, and thrilling all at once. Social rules, supernatural codes, and unspoken laws of their packs screamed that they should stay apart, yet desire bent those rules like they were paper. He reached forward slowly, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. Her breath caught. It was a simple, tender gesture, yet it carried a charge that made her wolf growl low in warning and anticipation. She wanted to lean into it, to let herself be claimed, if only for a moment, but she resisted. Pride, fear, and the knowledge of danger anchored her in place. "You hide more than I imagined," he murmured, his voice roughened by emotion he refused to show. "And yet I can't stop noticing, can't stop thinking that maybe, just maybe, we're meant to face what's coming. Together." Her chest tightened. Every word, every look, every touch that lingered in the air drew her closer to a truth she had tried to deny. Her wolf growled softly, not with anger this time, but with longing. She wanted to step forward, to let the moment carry her into something irreversible, something forbidden. And yet she stayed, trembling, caught between instinct and caution, between the pull of desire and the risk of exposure. The forest sighed around them, heavy with anticipation, as if holding its breath. And in that suspended silence they both knew. What was beginning between them could not be ignored, and whatever came next would change everything. But neither dared to speak the words aloud, yet. The forest was alive with shadows, each tree a sentinel, each rustle a whisper of things unseen. She moved cautiously, senses stretched taut, aware of every crack of a branch, every shift in the wind. The moon hung low, a pale guardian watching from above, but it could not protect her from what stalked the night. He was there before she could see him, a rival alpha, his presence radiating power and menace. She smelled him first, cold, sharp, commanding. His gaze sought the alpha king, but it lingered on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. He knew her secret, or at least suspected it, and he intended to use it. "You shouldn't be here, little wolf," he murmured, voice smooth, dangerous, carrying the weight of calculated malice. "You're far from home, far from protection, and yet you wander as if fearless." Her wolf growled low, claws itching to strike, muscles coiling with raw energy. She wanted to lash out, to tear him down before he could move another step closer, but the alpha was near, unseen but undeniably present. To fight recklessly would endanger him, and yet she could not let the threat go unchecked. From the shadows, the alpha emerged, his eyes dark and unwavering. The rival stiffened at the sight of him, recognition sparking in his gaze. "You should have stayed in the shadows," the alpha said, voice a low growl, commanding the very air between them. The rival alpha smirked, stepping closer, claws flexing beneath his gloves, eyes flicking to her with a predator's assessment. "I've heard stories of you," he said to her, tone both mocking and intrigued. "But stories rarely prepare you for reality, power like yours. It can be dangerous in the wrong hands or the right ones." She bristled. His words were both threat and temptation, a knife-edged challenge to everything she had fought to conceal. She felt the pull of her wolf, raw and insistent, urging her to reveal herself, to strike and protect the alpha before he was forced to act. The alpha's eyes never left her, sharp and commanding. "Do not test me," he said, and in that single glance she felt both warning and unspoken trust. He was relying on her restraint, yet also daring her to step forward, to unleash the power he sensed, but could not yet name. A sudden rustle signaled movement behind the rival. He tensed, realizing he was surrounded, though by whom he could not yet see. The tension was electric, every heartbeat echoing like a drum in the silent night. She stepped forward, letting the wolf rise within her just enough to sharpen her senses without giving herself away entirely. Every muscle coiled, ready, the air itself humming with anticipation. The rival alpha smirked, thinking he held the advantage, but he had underestimated her instincts, her speed, and the silent bond she shared with the king. The first move came swiftly. The rival lunged, claws swinging, and in a heartbeat she was there, fierce, untamed, every step precise, every movement a blur of shadow and strength. She intercepted, forcing him back, just enough to buy the alpha a clear line of sight. The alpha struck with brutal efficiency, a predator defending his territory. Together, they moved with an unspoken rhythm. Him, human but dominant, her wolf instinct and restrained power, pushing the rival back, forcing him to retreat into the darkness, snarling with frustration. Breathless, she stood at the edge of the clearing, heart racing. The alpha's gaze found hers, and in that glance a silent acknowledgement passed between them. Danger had come, but together they were unstoppable. The night exhaled, shadows retreating as the threat faded, for now, but the rival's warning lingered, an echo that promised the battle was far from over. Her wolf growled low, possessive and restless. She had tasted the edge of her power, and she knew deep in her bones that the coming storms would demand far more than she had ever dared to give, and she was ready. The forest was alive with tension, every shadow seeming to stretch closer, every rustle a threat. The alpha had cornered the rival, but he was skilled, relentless, and hungry for a fight. She had followed at a distance, senses on high alert, wolf instincts screaming that this confrontation was about to tip into danger too great for any ordinary human, or even Alphat, a face alone. Then she saw it. A sudden, brutal swipe of claws from the rival caught the alpha off guard. He stumbled, a flash of pain crossing his features. Her breath caught. Time seemed to slow as panic, instinct, and desire collided. No, the wolf inside her roared, a fierce, uncontainable force that had long slept beneath human skin. Her legs shot forward before her mind could intervene, a blur of shadow and speed. She struck with precision, hands and feet a storm of raw, focused power, intercepting the rival's next attack. He barely had time to register her presence before she forced him backward, snapping, growling, letting every ounce of her restrained strength pour through her limbs. The alpha turned, eyes wide, but he did not step forward. He trusted her, and for the first time, she realized just how much he believed in her, even without knowing her full truth. That trust ignited something fierce inside her, a bond that was no longer invisible, no longer tentative. Claws, teeth, and sheer force met the rival's aggression. She moved with a predator's grace, senses beyond human, reflexes sharpened to an edge no ordinary warrior could match. The rival snarled, surprised, struggling against the sudden onslaught. He was strong, but she was a storm made flesh, power and instinct fused into something breathtaking, unstoppable. The alpha watched, calculating, and then joined with precision. They were no longer two separate beings in a forest. They were predator and mate, movement synchronized, every strike, every dodge a testament to trust and latent power. The rival faltered, realizing too late that he had underestimated her. A final swipe, fierce, unrelenting, sent the rival tumbling into the underbrush. He hissed a curse, retreating into the shadows, leaving the clearing silent, save for the heavy breathing of the two who remained. She stood in the moonlight, chest heaving, heart pounding with adrenaline and something else, something fierce and intoxicating. The wolf inside her had tasted freedom, strength unfettered, and it was glorious and terrifying all at once. The alpha approached, dark eyes scanning her with a mixture of awe and disbelief. I didn't know you." His voice trailed off, unable, or unwilling, to fully articulate what he had just witnessed. She let the wolf recede, muscles relaxing, heartbeat slowing, though the raw power lingered like fire under her skin. "You didn't need to," she said softly, masking pride and exhilaration with fragile humility. "It's better if no one knows," but his gaze didn't waver. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, a challenge, and a bond solidifying in the heat of battle. He had seen her strength, and though the world demanded secrecy, the moment had shifted everything between them. Her wolf growled softly, possessive, almost pleased, as if approving the alpha's presence and his recognition of her power. She realized in that heartbeat that nothing would ever be the same. She could no longer pretend to be powerless, nor could she deny the pull between them. The forest exhaled, quiet and tense, the shadows retreating but leaving behind the weight of something irrevocable. Danger had passed, for now, but her secret had been glimpsed, her strength laid bare. And the alpha, the man whose authority she had once feared, now looked at her with something far more intense than curiosity, something like destiny, and in that moment she understood the wolf inside her was no longer just a secret. It was a force that could save him, protect him, and perhaps bind them together in ways the world was not yet ready to understand. The night carried on, but the air between them shimmered with unspoken truths, desire, and the promise of battles yet to come. The blood moon rose crimson over the horizon, casting the forest in a sickly, otherworldly light. Its glow painted the leaves red and silver, bathing the clearing in shadows that seemed alive with menace. Tonight was sacred, a ceremony to honor the pack, to bind the Alpha to the land and its spirits, but nothing about this night felt safe. She stood at the edge of the ritual circle, wolf instincts thrumming beneath her skin, heart hammering. The rivals' retreat had been temporary, a warning that danger lingered like smoke in the wind. And yet, it was not the rival who made her shiver now. It was the one she had trusted, one of the Alpha's closest allies, a man whose loyalty had seemed unquestionable. He moved toward the center, the ceremonial dagger in his hand glinting in the blood moon's light. He smiled, soft and friendly to the others, but there was a coldness in his eyes, a darkness beneath the charm. "Everything will be easier," he murmured to the Alpha, voice honeyed but sharp as steel. Something inside her snapped. Her wolf growled, low and warning. Betrayal. The air shifted, carrying the scent of deceit and danger. She sensed it before the Alpha did, felt it in the tension of the pack, in the ripple of fear that no one yet recognized. Before she could warn him, the dagger flew through the air not at her, but at the Alpha. Time slowed. She lunged, moving faster than human eyes could follow, her claws flashing as she intercepted the blade. It tore through her cloak, grazing her arm, but the Alpha was safe. Shock froze the pack, and disbelief painted every face. The Alpha's eyes widened, then darkened, a growl rumbling in his chest as he realized the depth of the betrayal. How? He whispered, voice low, deadly. The traitor stepped back, smirk faltering, realizing his plan had almost failed, but not completely. You never saw it coming." He spat, anger and fear mingling. "You think you're protected. You think your little wolf can save you from everything." Her wolf erupted, fierce and untamed, senses screaming, instincts demanding action. She leapt, intercepting him again, claws and teeth a blur of precision and force. The Alpha joined immediately, a predator united with his mate in a deadly dance, striking with brutal efficiency. The traitor stumbled back, caught off guard by their synchronized strength and determination. The pack watched in stunned silence, torn between fear, awe, and loyalty. Bonds had shattered in an instant. Whispers rippled like wind over dry leaves, carrying the realization that trust had been violated at the highest level. The Alpha's gaze locked on her, dark, sharp, and intense. "Are you unharmed?" he asked, voice low but edged with an emotion she could not name. Concern, admiration, relief, desire. She exhaled, letting the wolf recede just enough to speak. "I'm fine," she said, masking adrenaline with a fragile calm, "but he cannot be allowed to act again." Together, they forced the traitor to retreat into the shadows, a final warning that the pack would not forgive treachery. The forest was still, save for the rustle of leaves and the soft, uneven breaths of the two who had just survived the betrayal. But the blood moon hung heavy above, crimson and ominous, a reminder that danger was far from over. Her wolf growled low, possessive and restless. She had protected the Alpha, revealed her strength, and faced betrayal at its deadliest. And yet, the night left a scar on her trust, on the pack, and on the fragile bond forming between them. The Alpha reached for her hand, brushing it gently against his. The gesture was small, but it carried reassurance, acknowledgement, and an unspoken promise. She was not alone. And as the blood moon cast its final glow across the clearing, she understood something terrifying and exhilarating at once. Power, love, and trust were all fragile, and all could be destroyed in a single heartbeat. The forest trembled under the weight of approaching power. Moonlight streamed through the dense canopy, illuminating warriors poised in the shadows, claws flexed, teeth bared, eyes burning with predatory intent. Tonight, nothing was ordinary. Tonight, the rival Alphas had gathered, drawn by greed, envy, and the desire to challenge the rightful king. She stood beside the Alpha, senses flaring, wolf instincts alive and sharpened. Every rustle, every subtle movement of the trees, every scent carried meaning. Danger was imminent, but so was opportunity. the chance to protect him, to prove herself, to show that her strength was not to be hidden any longer. The Alpha's hand brushed hers briefly, a silent grounding, a promise that they would face this together. His dark eyes locked on hers, fierce and commanding, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the two of them, connected by trust, instinct, and unspoken desire. Then the first rival lunged. The clash was instantaneous, a violent collision of power and fury. Claws and teeth met with force, growls ripping through the air as combatants crashed together, the sound of battle echoing like thunder through the trees. She moved like a shadow, wolf and human in perfect synchrony, intercepting threats before they could strike the Alpha. Each movement was precise, instinctual, and lethal. Her senses screamed, every nerve alive with the thrill of battle, every strike a declaration. She was no longer hidden, no longer powerless. The Alpha fought beside her, calculated, dominant, every strike demonstrating years of training and the raw authority of a true king. Together, they became a storm, predator, and mate in perfect harmony, striking down foes who underestimated them. A rival charged, larger than the rest, claws aimed at the Alpha's throat. Time slowed. Her wolf surged, untamed, and she intercepted him with a speed and force that stole even the Alpha's breath away. The rival stumbled, teeth snapping uselessly, and she delivered a blow that sent him crashing into the underbrush. The battle raged on, a blur of shadow and movement. The forest floor became a battlefield of raw power, blood, and determination. Every rival that approached felt the lethal coordination between them, felt the unspoken bond and the deadly trust that allowed them to fight as one. At the heart of the chaos, the Alpha moved with fluid authority, protecting her when necessary, but always allowing her to strike her own blows. They were equals in this dance of survival, each amplifying the other's strength, each trusting instinct over hesitation. Finally, the last rival faltered, recognition in his eyes as he realized the futility of opposing them. He retreated, howling in frustration and fear, leaving the clearing littered with the fallen and the victorious. Breathless, she collapsed to her knees, wolf instincts still humming beneath her skin, heart racing. The Alpha knelt beside her, hand brushing her hair back from her face, eyes dark and intense. "You were incredible," he murmured, voice low, almost reverent. She met his gaze, chest heaving, and for the first time the fear of exposure, of power, of consequences fell away beneath the thrill of survival and connection. "We fought together," she whispered, a fragile pride threading her words. He smiled, slow and dangerous, brushing a thumb against her cheek. "Together," he repeated, "always, you are mine in ways this world will never understand. My mate, my equal, my wolf." Her wolf growled low, satisfied, possessive. And she realized, with a mixture of awe and desire, that the bond forged in battle was unbreakable. Tonight, they had not only survived, they had proven the depth of their connection, the strength of their unity, and the inevitability of what was to come. The forest exhaled around them, quiet now, but charged with the echoes of violence, trust, and the promise of a bond that could not be denied. The forest lay in uneasy quiet, the aftermath of battle hanging like smoke in the air. The pack moved cautiously, scanning the shadows for any lingering threat, but the real danger had already been faced, and survived. What remained now were the truths that had been hidden, waiting for the right moment to surface. She stood beside the Alpha, still trembling slightly from adrenaline, wolf instincts receding, but leaving a lingering hum of power beneath her skin. The Alpha's gaze was fixed on her, dark and searching, as if he could see every secret she had carried for so long. "It's time," he said softly, voice low but commanding, carrying weight beyond words. No more hiding, no more pretense. Her heart thudded. She had lived her life in shadows, masking strength and identity, keeping everyone, including him, at a distance. But she realized now that he had seen her all along, sensed her wolf, sensed her power, even when she had tried to hide it. She inhaled, the forest air sharp and crisp, and let the truth slip through her lips, trembling but unbroken. "I am not ordinary," she whispered. "I am a wolf, born of a lineage you have never known, one stronger than any pack you faced. I have hidden it for years, but I can no longer pretend." The Alpha stepped closer, eyes dark with emotion. Fury, awe, and something deeper, something that made her heart lurch. "I've always known," he said quietly, almost a confession. "I felt it, even before I understood what it meant, and yet, seeing it, knowing it fully, it changes nothing. If anything, it proves you are more than I imagined, stronger, braver, mine." Her pulse raced. The admission of her secret had always felt like a gamble, a risk that could destroy her, that could make her an outcast, a target. But in his gaze, she saw acceptance, recognition, and desire mingled with trust. She realized that the truth, however dangerous, had brought them closer rather than tearing them apart. He reached for her, brushing fingers along her cheek, eyes never leaving hers. "You are no longer hiding," he murmured. "And I will never let anyone harm you again, not your rivals, not anyone who dares challenge you, or me again." Her wolf stirred, low and possessive, and she felt a surge of something fierce and thrilling, freedom, recognition, and connection. For the first time, she did not fear what she was. She embraced it. She embraced herself and the rival alphas. She said, voice steady now, tinged with pride and a hint of menace, "They have seen what happens when they underestimate us. Let them learn it again if they dare." He smiled, a dangerous curve of lips that made her shiver. "They will remember," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "But tonight, we claim more than victory. We claim each other. No secrets, no shadows, only us." The forest seemed to lean in closer, the moonlight catching the glint of her eyes, the shine of her wolf within, and the promise of what they could face together. Their pack, their power, and their bond were no longer hidden. And in that revelation, the world shifted, no longer fragile, no longer uncertain. The alpha stepped closer, wrapping her in his arms, protective, possessive, and tender all at once. She let herself rest against him, the tension of years of hiding melting away. For the first time, nothing was hidden, nothing was denied, and for the first time she felt truly free. The fire crackled in the heart of the clearing, flames dancing across the faces of the two who had survived betrayal, battle, and secrets long buried. The pack had settled around them, cautious but loyal, yet the forest itself seemed to give them space, an unspoken permission to breathe, to feel, to reconnect after the chaos of the blood moon and the battles that had tested every bond. She sat close to the alpha, the warmth of the fire mirrored by the warmth of his presence. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to simply be wolf instincts quieted, heart open, body relaxed, yet every sense alert to him. He was near, always near, a constant gravity she had once resisted but now craved. "You fought well," he murmured, voice low, roughened with emotion, better than anyone could have imagined. She let herself smile, a small, vulnerable curve of lips. "I only fought because I had to, and because I had you to protect." Her words carried more than gratitude. They carried the trust she had held back for so long, now offered freely. His hand found hers, fingers weaving together, strong, grounding, yet gentle. "And yet," he said, eyes dark and intense, "you've given me more than protection. You've given me trust. You've given me you." Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, not with warning this time, but with anticipation, approval, a fierce sense of belonging. She let herself lean into him, pressing closer, letting the closeness speak the words her lips could not. His arm wrapped around her, protective and possessive, a promise etched into muscle and warmth. They didn't need words to acknowledge the shift between them. The battles had forged something stronger than physical strength. Trust, respect, and desire intertwined like fire and steel, unbreakable and alive. She felt it in the brush of his hand, the weight of his gaze, the way his presence filled the space around her. "You're no longer hiding," he whispered, thumb brushing along her cheekbone, "and I want you, not as powerless, not as fragile, as you are strong, fierce, unstoppable." Her breath caught. Desire, longing, and relief all collided in her chest. She had feared this moment, feared the intensity of connection, the vulnerability it demanded. But now, with the pack at a cautious distance and the fire between them flickering like a heartbeat, she allowed herself to respond. Slowly, deliberately, she pressed closer, feeling the rise and fall of his chest beneath her hands. Every brush of skin, every subtle shift, was a conversation unspoken. Every sigh, every shiver, carried the promise of trust forged in fire, trust earned in battle, trust earned in the raw honesty of survival, trust earned in the recognition of each other's strength. The wolf within her stirred, no longer restrained, but aligned with her human heart, harmonized with the alpha's presence. She leaned her forehead to his, voice barely more than a whisper. I'm yours. He smiled, dark, dangerous, and tender all at once. And I'm yours, he replied, voice low, unwavering, in every way. The fire crackled, shadows dancing around them, but they were no longer afraid of the darkness. Together, they had faced betrayal, battle, and secrets, and emerged unbroken. Together, they were more than power, more than fear. They were bond, desire, and love forged in fire. The forest exhaled, the pack quiet, and the two of them, wolf and alpha, mate and equal, sat side by side, hands entwined, hearts tethered, ready to face whatever came next. The clearing was quiet, save for the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant call of nocturnal creatures. Moonlight spilled across the forest floor, painting the alpha and his mate in silver light, the air charged with anticipation and the unspoken tension of the pack watching, waiting. He stepped forward, every movement deliberate, radiating authority and dominance, yet tempered with a tenderness reserved only for her. The pack fell silent, sensing the gravity of what was about to happen. Eyes turned toward them, curious, uncertain, but respectful. Their leader was about to do something that would alter the course of the pack forever. She stood before him, chest rising and falling, wolf instincts alert but calm, body humming with anticipation. Every glance from him sent shivers through her, a mixture of pride, desire, and awe. She had revealed herself, fought alongside him, faced betrayal and danger, and yet she had never felt so seen, so recognized, so claimed. He reached for her, fingers brushing her cheek, thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "You are mine," he said, voice low, dark, and utterly unyielding. "Not just as my ally, not just as the wolf who saved me, but as my mate, my equal, my bond, and I will never let anyone, no rival, no threat, take you from me." Her heart stuttered, a rush of emotion she could barely contain. Pride, relief, longing, all tangled together into a force stronger than fear. She felt her wolf stir, approving, possessive, alive in a way that resonated with the alpha's declaration. "You've claimed me," she whispered, breathless, a small, almost trembling smile touching her lips. "And I accept it completely." A ripple went through the pack. Whispers of awe and astonishment flowed like wind over dry leaves. Some faces betrayed surprise, others respect, but all recognized the magnitude of the moment. In one decisive declaration, he had bound them together, human and wolf, alpha and mate, strength and trust entwined in a single, undeniable bond. He stepped closer, closing the distance until there was no space between them, no hesitation, no shadow of doubt. His hands framed her face, holding her steady as he lowered his forehead to hers. "You are mine," he repeated, softer this time, almost a vow, "and I am yours." She leaned into him, letting herself feel the weight of his presence, the heat of his body, the certainty of his claim. Every instinct, every heartbeat, every wolf growl within her resonated with the truth of it. She was not powerless, she was not hidden, and she was not alone. The moonlight shimmered on them, silver and red, as if the night itself had witnessed the union. Their bond, forged in fire, battle, and unspoken desire, was now official, sacred, and undeniable. And as their hands entwined, eyes locked, and wolf instincts aligned with human hearts, the forest exhaled, carrying the certainty of their claim into the night. No rival could challenge it, no threat could undo it. The alpha had claimed his mate, and she had accepted, heart, wolf, and soul united. The pack, silent and awed, finally exhaled, recognizing what had been established. The bond was unbreakable, the mate claimed, and the future, though still uncertain, was theirs to face together. The forest was quiet at last, bathed in the soft silver glow of the moon. Shadows no longer carried threat, only the gentle hum of life and the promise of peace. The pack had settled, loyal and calm, trusting in the strength and wisdom of their alpha, and now in the bond he had claimed and solidified with his mate. She stood beside him, wolf and human in perfect harmony, the warmth of their connection radiating between them. No longer hidden, no longer afraid, she breathed freely, every instinct aligned with hers and his. Her power was hers to command, her strength fully recognized, and her place, both beside him and within the pack, was secure. The alpha's hand found hers, fingers entwining in the way they had in battle, in moments of trust, in quiet intimacy by the fire. "We've survived betrayal, rivals, and war," he murmured, voice low and rough, "and yet here we stand together, unbroken." She leaned into him, resting her head against his chest, heart still racing but filled with a warmth that had nothing to do with danger and everything to do with trust, love, and belonging. "I've never felt more complete," she whispered, letting her wolf rest in peace for the first time in years. "I'm finally home." He pressed a gentle kiss to the crown of her head, a silent vow to protect, cherish, and honor her in every way. "Home," he echoed, lips brushing her hair, eyes dark and steady, filled with all the desire, respect, and devotion he had long kept contained. "You're my mate, my equal, my forever." Her wolf growled softly, low and possessive, a sound that spoke of approval and satisfaction. She had embraced her power, her identity, and her bond with him fully. The fear that had once ruled her life was gone, replaced by the exhilarating certainty that she was no longer alone, and she never would be. The pack stirred around them, some moving closer in quiet reverence, others keeping respectful distance, all recognizing the bond that had been forged in battle, fire, and trust. Their alpha and his mate were united, and the strength of their connection would carry the pack forward into the future. They stepped together toward the heart of the clearing, hands still entwined, senses aligned, hearts synchronized. Every shadow seemed softer now, every rustle of leaves a gentle whisper of reassurance. No rival, no threat, no secret could undo what had been established. They were bonded, claimed, and irrevocably linked. Wolf and human, alpha and mate, protector and equal. As the moon reached its peak, silver light spilling over the forest, they paused, faces close, foreheads touching. Words were unnecessary. Their hearts spoke for them, a language older than time, stronger than any force that had ever tried to separate them. "I'm yours," she breathed, voice soft, final, and full of promise. "And I'm yours," he replied, voice deep, unwavering, carrying the weight of every battle, every secret, and every desire that had led them to this moment. The forest exhaled, the night at peace, the pack secure, and for the first time she felt truly free, not just as a wolf, not just as a mate, but as herself. Together, they walked forward, side by side, hands entwined, hearts bound. The alpha and his mate, forever bound, ready to face whatever the future held, with love, power, and unbreakable unity.